welcome back to the Lookout. Today's the 25th of August, and there's a lot going on. We're going to talk about fires up and down the West Coast. I've got Michael Steinberg in the studio here with me today. Say hello, Steinberg.
How's it going, everyone?
All right, Steinberg is a student here of geography and pyrogeography, and been working together for a while. And he went down Saturday. Spent Saturday in the field down on the the Picket Fire in Sonoma County. And so we're going to talk a bit about what he saw there. He's going to narrate some of his video, and we're going to look at some really impressive fire behavior yesterday on the Garnet Fire down in east of Fresno, and we're going to look at the Flat Fire, which as far as we can tell is Dunzo in Central Oregon, and we're also going to look at the Immigrant Fire that's burning with great abandon in the Central Cascades. All kinds of lightning going on. Maybe not the end of the world for fires, so we're going to talk about why that is, and kind of give you a look all over. So thanks, everyone. And hopefully we can help soothe some of your fire-related anxiety. So welcome to Lookout. That's our goal with Lookout, is to help people understand how fires work on the landscape, and the factors, the science, the art and craft, all of that. So the better we know fire, the less it can terrify us. There are times when we do need to be terrified of fire, but those are really relatively rare. And in between, got to live. So glad to have you here, Steinberg.
Thanks for having me again.
All right,
so
let's we're gonna do a little quick map tour here, and we got a whole bunch of new stuff happening here in the background. In the Lookout, we're swapping wires and microphones, and since we got a lot of background noise, we'll try turning off the AC here. You want to switch that to off, to lower it out? If we start sweating bullets, it's because we care about you guys. We want you to be happy.
It'll be worth it.
Okay. How about that? Tell us if you can. We got a new mic for Steinberg. He's right by the AC. So if it's better, we're gonna sweat for you. Might open some windows up.
Just get a little bit of airflow.
Yeah, did that fix it?
It works.
That was it. Okay. Well, we're gonna sweat it out here, and then invest in some microphones. Okay, so let's go to the Picket Fire. I'm just going to kind of set the stage for Michael's field day, and all these little red things are fires, but a lot of them are out or not doing much. Okay, so just to set the stage on Picket is kind of done. We know that the percent containment isn't saying 80% or anything, but it's burned most of the fuel available to it. A lot of good firefighting happened, and so we just want to kind of set the stage for what we saw with Michael going down there. Here we got Calistoga over here. We're looking in California, kind of Napa Valley here, and Sacramento off over here behind Steiny. Fire ran for several days, mainly in the afternoons and evenings. The fire had a lot of kind of inversions in the morning where it would kind of be capped by its own smoke. But then, so on Friday night, the white line here is where the fire was. And so the fire had kind of been backing down into Swartz Canyon. And it kind of made a run up and out of there. And then the yellow is where it was the next morning. So overnight on Friday, the fire kind of continued to spread in Swartz Canyon and doing what we call that slope reversal. And then it kind of came out of there with a vengeance on Saturday. So Steinberg's going to kind of show some video of that, and we're going to talk a bit about fuel loading and kind of why the fire behaved the way it did when it did. So are you ready to show some video?
Yeah, I got it all up.
There we go.
Switch it over to mine.
There we go.
Perfect. Yeah, so this is Saturday. This is around like 3:30 p.m. And this is definitely probably the most active and even to extreme fire behavior that we saw on the Picket. So right now we're kind of at Etna Springs, kind of near where the dirt kind of ends and with the pavement. And there's a lot of spot fires, as you can see, kind of back in there, right there. And then you can see with this plume as well, there's a lot of rotation in it. So that's one of your watch outs if you're on the ground, is that plume rotating. So there's a good water drop from that copter there. They're trying to get all these spot fires because of when that plume, it kind of laid down. And with that plume laying down, you're getting all that burning debris material, those embers that are falling, catching on fire in that grass. And even there's a spot fire way off to the left as well too. That was at least about half mile, maybe even more from the main flaming front.
Here, pause that for a second, I'll throw up the map again.
Yeah.
All right, so basically we're on the north end of the fire here in Etna Springs, and I'm just going to come around and kind of take the perspective on the fire that he had as he's shooting these images. So the fire kind of ran up out of Sports Canyon. And so we're kind of looking at the backside of this knob here. And he's saying that when the fire ran up out of there on the other side, it spotted all over this slope here. And this slope had fairly heavy fuels. And what we were talking about on here was kind of about how fire history affects fuel loading, and we kind of assumed that the fuel loading would stay pretty similar throughout the fire's run. But that wasn't really the case, and so we just wanted to show you one image here of why there was heavy fuels for this fire to have such kind of incredible fire behavior. Is if we look at 2020, even though this area all burned in 2020, the perimeter out here was maybe they fired off of a dozer line or whatever, but this area didn't really burn very severely in 2020. So this green area that we're looking at here is on this 2020 imagery is the backside of that mountain, and the fire then kind of just backed down to here in 2020 on a Hennessy fire. And so it's a good kind of cautionary tale that we say, hell, you know, the fire behavior is going to be less because this area burned 5 years ago, but it doesn't mean that it all burned the same. It wasn't all just like taken down to black sticks and twigs 5 years ago. Like there's parts of this that barely burned. So if we'll go back to his video here, but you just kind of, when you look at the vegetation that is shown in this video here, keep in mind that everything we're looking at here in this picture did burn 5 years ago. It just didn't burn very hot.
Yeah. When I was scouting this area earlier in the day before the fire reached this place, I was noting the same thing too. So when I saw the fire approaching towards the ridge and it was really starting to pick up steam, I'll pause the video kind of where I was pointing, right up around here, this is where I really noted that this is where the fire could really kind of threaten their dozer line. So you can see a bulldozer down here. They're trying to expand their dozer off the roads. There's a safety zone right here, and then you can see all these spot fires down towards the bottom of the drainage, and then those would do another reversal as well and then run up slope. And so what I'm pointing out is the smoke that you can see right up here that's actually getting ingested into the plume. And so that's, again, it's just the eddying effect from those mountains. I'll kind of rewind back there, that you can kind of see right here. So the winds that were kind of showing up in that area, I was measuring right around like 25-30 miles per hour. And so in terms of fire behavior, that's going to affect it a lot. And so what we saw as well is when that plume really started to lay low, the fire was able to make some pretty significant runs down slope. So down the slope that you see where the fire is burning right now.
All right, so we'll pull back up the map again here. So he's talking about these downslope runs. Basically, the fire got established from the spots, and then it ran with the kind of afternoon winds. It ran out here towards Etna Springs. They ended up firing off the road out here and off some other lines, right? And so basically, this is the final perimeter. It didn't grow much beyond when he was there for the firefighting. And so the final perimeter. Do you want to talk a little bit about this like finger that ran down out into Etna Springs?
Yeah. So that little finger there, it may not look like much if you just look like regular satellite imagery, but if you switch over to shaded relief, which shows kind of the topography of the land, it's actually part of the Swartz Creek drainage. So there is terrain for that fire to actually move through, and that's why it actually burned all the way towards the road.
So it's just kind of, there's like heavy fuel along the creek, and that bit of a gully there kind of funneled that little finger.
Yep, that's exactly what happened.
Cool. So is there anything else you want to talk about on that kind of north end of the fire? Like what was going on farther east?
Farther east, there was kind of more backing fire, kind of going down slope. It didn't really have kind of the same wind effect with that flow from the southwest as it did kind of more towards the west. So a lot of it was kind of more backing, but it was still in heavier fuel loading because it was kind of similar fire effects as what was happening here, where it was maybe more backing back in 2020. So there's a lot more fire.
A good chunk of this area out here, if we look at it, this area here didn't burn in 2020 at all. This little kind of around Etna Springs.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay.
And so even with that, the fire was still pretty moderated compared to earlier or on the other part of the fire because of the way the terrain is.
Okay.
So that was kind of the big thing, and that was the one thing that I really kind of knew in terms of how the fire would interact in that part of the landscape kind of later on that day.
Okay. So what else did you see out there that you thought was interesting about this particular fire? And so just to kind of, if you're just joining us, we're talking about the Picket Fire and how basically the Picket Fire is about done. It hasn't really spread for a couple of days now, and the last big day of spread was Saturday, and Michael Steinberg here was out during the fire kind of shooting video. So we're just been kind of, he's talking about what he saw and how it unfolded.
Yeah, really it was just that big kind of couple of hours, when it was really kind of in that drainage and kind of shooting out towards Etna Springs. That was where kind of the biggest fire behavior was. But then it moderated again, and especially right around sunset, fire activity really slowed down and it all went back into the ground. It wasn't crowning, there wasn't a bunch of spot fires occurring, and so they're able to kind of cut it off, and then kind of further along Etna Springs Road, they were able to fire off.
All right, so you want to show us some a little more video?
Yeah.
And then I'll pull up a kind of webcam animation from that.
Yeah. So again, you can kind of see with the smoke, there's kind of different areas where you can see it kind of rotating, especially right here. And so again, with wildland fire behavior, that's one of your watch-outs. If you see any sort of rotating column, especially on the right side of a plume, that's where kind of your most extreme fire behavior can occur. So this is video of kind of the CAL FIRE Hawk again coming in.
And why is that the right side of the plume important?
It's because that's where just kind of the air kind of funnels in the most. There's enough
so is it like the
rotation,
Coriolis
exactly.
effect that like so it's creating a small area of low pressure.
Low pressure. Yep.
Wow.
Yeah. And so when it started to rotate up at the top of that ridge, that's when I realized that there could be a fire tornado that could occur, and there was one actually. And that fire tornado ran across that ridge, probably about half a mile in about a span of about a minute.
Wow.
Because I was able to kind of see it move, and then that's what kind of really accelerated the fire downslope.
Wow.
Yeah. And it's all because of these little microclimates. The way the terrain is, the way the topography is with the wind aloft, like it can allow this sort of thing to happen. And we saw that a couple of times actually locally here with the park fire, especially that second day when it was running up towards Forest Ranch. Where, in Big Chico Creek, there's a lot of kind of areas where a canyon will kind of jut out. And so what that will allow is for the wind to kind of eddy around. And so when that fire was moving through, it allowed for the plume to start to rotate. And so that's what really accelerated the fire as well, kind of up by Big Chico Creek Ecological Reserve.
So just a subtle change in topography, or a sharp change in topography, kind of kick-starts that spinning of the column?
Yep, that's exactly it. And especially if the wind is kind of banking up against the terrain as well, too. So it would kind of turn and eddy around. And so that's what really can kind of exacerbate fire behavior.
All right, I'm just pulling up kind of that ridge that you're showing in your shot here to show kind of the topography there.
Yeah, it was pretty impressive to watch all that happen in about a span of about 30 minutes, I would say.
Wow. All right, so let's just turn my monitor back on here.
There we go.
Yeah, so he's just talking here about like the fire basically ran up the backside of this ridge here. And then there's enough variety in topography here that as the fire kind of came over the top and became established with the spot fires, the flow of the wind through there could get kind of disrupted by these little kind of side ridges. And that was kind of helping to get that plume to rotate. I always kind of wondered, like, what are the factors that cause a plume? You see that a lot, plume rotating. I've never thought about it being that it's a low pressure system, and so it's going to rotate clockwise.
Yeah.
So we're talking, with it's creating low pressure because all that heat from the rapidly rising air off the fire is rushing upward, and that air is lighter, and so it rises up, and around it the air is cooler and denser, so you have this small area of low pressure. And then so in weather in general we see that the circulation around the center of the low is counterclockwise.
Counterclockwise, yep. Yeah. And then and especially too with, this particular fire, when it slopped over the ridge, the fire didn't back down. It actually ran upslope again against kind of where the head of the fire was. And so that would create a lot more heat generated.
So spots are rising, going back.
Exactly.
Down. So you want to come back to your video?
Yeah. So if I just zoom back a little bit, you can actually see the smoke right here. It's all getting funneled in up towards the slope, whereas further down, it's going this way. You can kind of see that rotation right around here.
Okay.
Yeah. Lots of little intricacies around plume dynamics that we can get into as well. But.
Yeah, so what else have you got footage-wise to share here?
That's really about it. There's a spot fire kind of further down the road that they were able to catch, kind of near this home. But the fire did kind of back down into this area, and you can see kind of here, like, this is all foothill pine, brush, some oaks kind of sporadically thrown around. Like, you want to talk about serious fire country, like, if you see foothill pine out there, that's a tall tale sign that landscape needs to burn.
Right, gray pine. So that's your kind of your indicator. If you got gray pine, formerly known as digger pine in California, and we stopped calling it that because digger was kind of used like the N-word to describe native people.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you got gray pine around your place, it's a hint that you live in a place that has potential for extreme fire behavior.
Yep.
All right, so we got a question. Did it get close to any redwoods?
No, it didn't. The redwoods that I remember further up along Etna Springs Road were there were small pockets of them, and I was kind of surprised that they were there. I wasn't expecting it, but they were along the other side, kind of the northern side of it, kind of up to where the trailhead is for any locals that are around there. So they were unaffected because they were able to hold the fire at the road.
See, I'm just I'm realizing is that we've got I look towards you. We're sitting opposite of where the cameras are, so we're looking away from each other, even when we're looking at each other. Working out the bugs. Okay, so where do you want to go next, man?
What do you think? There's a lot to talk about in terms of
let's jump out and talk about weather a little bit. You got some weather slides queued up, so we'll show your screen and you can be our weather guide here.
Awesome. Yeah. So what we're seeing right now is lightning flash density. This is GOES satellite imagery, and we've been having a lot of thunderstorms recently. So Zeke can attest because he was up in Westwood yesterday, celebrating Dad's birthday, and got rained on. Right?
Rained so hard.
Yeah.
It's like a once in kind of 5 or 10 year storm for Westwood yesterday.
Yeah. So the reason why, and kind of Zeke, you touched on it a couple days ago, is we kind of finally had our monsoon season. So Four Corners High, it's a high pressure system. You can actually see the flow of it. High pressure will always rotate clockwise, low pressure counterclockwise. And so what that does is that it brings in a lot of moisture from Mexico. And so that's what we're seeing right here. And that's why we're having a lot of thunderstorms along the Sierra Crest, up into the Cascades, into northwest Nevada. And the reason why that we're having them in the Sierra and not in the valley is because of something called forcing. So forcing is a mechanism for thunderstorms to develop. It's basically what makes your clouds and your cumulus field grow up. And with the Sierra Nevada, those mountains, it's something called orographic lift. And so that lift with the mountains is what forces air to rise, which is why, usually in the summertime, if you're up in Redding, for example, because I visited my grandparents a lot during this time back when I was a kid, you would only see the thunderstorms all around the mountains because that's where that forcing mechanism was, and that was all terrain-based. Versus in the valley where it's flat, more arid, there's nothing for that parcel of air to rise up. So that's basically what we're seeing right now. And that's another reason why we have so much rain and snow in the Sierra. Basically, if we didn't have the Sierra Nevada mountain range, we'd be way more dry and arid because of that.
Forces the air to rise, and then it cools and the moisture precipitates out.
Yep.
All right, so I'm just going to swap the screen here real quick and show the kind of nationwide satellite view. And we've got kind of, turn on my crayons here. We've got kind of a high that's been moving from out here in the Four Corners out this way. And we talk about how we've got a big low up over kind of eastern Canada here, and you can see the circulation there is counterclockwise. But in this high pressure systems here, we've got clockwise rotation. And so that is what's helping suck this moisture up from the Gulf and from Mexico, which is what's finally creating monsoon. So basically, we usually get monsoonal moisture in like July. And someone was saying recently, like, oh, we're going to get all of our monsoon in like 1 week. And so that's what's happening right now, is we just got this kind of tap of moisture coming up from Mexico, driven by finally having this Four Corners high. All summer, this Four Corners high has been farther east. It's been more like out around the Mississippi River. And so that has maybe been bringing them moisture from the Gulf, but that has pretty much blocked any moisture from coming into this kind of entire kind of southwest, which is why we had big fires in Arizona and Utah, just because we had this kind of dry flow coming up from Baja, and Baja's a desert. So we finally now have our kind of semi-normal Four Corners high, and so that is one reason to say, like, the flat fire the other day really didn't end up ruling the world, is because if you watch our storms here, we kind of move into these kind of more local. We'll come in a little closer. Like this is showing California and Oregon, and you see how these storms that come up through California end up moving up into Oregon. And so Oregon's also having a lot of moisture that's still coming from this kind of Mexico kind of source. You can see here in the afternoon just these big thunderheads blooming all over the west, especially in the Klamath Mountains, but then how it's moving up into Oregon.
Got a message?
I sent a message, I had to check. Okay, so you want to, I'll come back. Steinberg's going to take over. Here, next slide, please.
Yeah. Once again, like what we're seeing here, and I'll actually pull up our watch shooting map. So a lot of these storms, they are bringing, new lightning starts. So we're getting some kind of further down the Sierra. We've got the Garnet Fire, which really went big yesterday. Had a nice big pyrocumulus plume on it. And the interesting thing about it, kind of talking about what we mentioned before about kind of fire history, is that it actually is burning into a recent burn scar, and as recent as last year, which was the Basin Fire. So that fire is kind of near Balch Camp right here. And if I actually switch over to CalTopo here, it's also burning in the 2015 Rough Fire burn scar. So both burn scars that this fire is burning through, and it had the plume activity that we saw yesterday. And that was mainly the reason why that plume kind of really went big, is because of the moisture that was in the atmosphere. So that allowed kind of the smoke to really kind of punch through and get lofted up. That would get kind of more heated air generated underneath, and then would cap out up into the atmosphere.
Yeah, so we'll play a video from that in a second, but I just wanted to kind of real quick give you a perspective of where this fire is. We've got Fresno out here, and we've got Sierra Nevada mountains off here to the east, and basically Garnet is burning it at about 1,500 feet up to about 5,000 feet. So you got an incredible amount of relief here coming off. Is that the Kings River? What? San Joaquin? I don't know.
Yeah, let's see.
But this fire was remarkable, and we have some reporting about it on our website. So if you if we check out the lookout here, we put up a time lapse of yesterday, kind of early day. And then where is it? Here you go. But basically, the fire at about almost 3 o'clock was growing, but then you got this kind of mountain wave, which maybe you can describe that a little bit. But this fire basically like went crazy, and you can see how the upper level of the atmosphere has got kind of this what we call mountain wave, and this huge convection that's being driven by the incredibly unstable atmosphere that's driving all this thunderstorm development.
Yeah. No, that you pretty much described it. Like I don't have anything to say.
So what drives a mountain wave?
That's something I won't answer because I'm not a meteorologist.
I was hoping you'd know. No, I was hoping you'd say because I'm not a meteorologist either. But here we're just gonna play a little quick video of that blow up. So this fire went from like 600 acres to 4,000 acres in like, a couple hours, and it's still growing pretty rapidly.
Whoa. So Virginia Morris just said, what about the Dillon fire? Looks like it's cooking. That's a new one, and that is cooking right now. There's a really big header on it, actually.
Oh, you want to, I'll give you the screen.
Yeah, so this is the Dillon fire.
Where's that?
That is Klamath, looks like, over by Dillon Mountain along Highway 96. So south of Happy Camp, north is Soames Bar.
Oh man, okay, well, let's go see. I got a buddy named Dillon over there who's named after Dillon Creek. If it's Dillon Creek, that's okay, let's find it.
Yeah, that does have a good header on it. Thank you for letting us know. I had no clue. That's definitely a new one.
Okay, let's go over and see. Okay, here we go. Here's Dillon. So, pull it up. That's pretty fun tag team in here. Glad to have you here, man.
Yeah, it's definitely easier on you, I think, right?
Yeah, it's pretty hard to drive the computer and everything. Okay, so just for geography, we've got Wairika over here, and we got Eureka over here, and in between is there's lots of bad names for it, and I won't share them. But it's the Klamath. Firefighters love to hate the Klamath because it's steep and it's full poison oak, and the fires there get huge. So looking at Dillon, it's making a mess. So we're just going to pull up fire history and see what we can know about that. We've talked a lot on here about fire history in the Klamath. So Dillon's burning in 2008 mill fire. So picture 17-year-old burn scar. So that usually means that it's full of dead and down material, brush, and 17-year-old brush that's come back after the fire. It's going to run into the mosquito fire here shortly, which will really kind of contain it here, and it'll contain it a bit over here, the 2023 Elliott. Those fires are both going to they constrain the options that this fire has for growth, but it looks like it's currently gobbling. And just to give kind of a quick acreage estimate of what terrain it has available to it that's not a recent burn, like right off the bat, it's got 15,000 acres easy that it could run. So that fire, Dillon's going to burn for the rest of the summer. That's what we know about something like that. And so is there a webcam view of that?
Yeah, there's a couple of them that are up right now. I need to pull up the alert.
Tell me when you want the video back.
If I can type alert California. Again, thank you for notifying us. I had no clue. So that's good to know. That's putting on a good show.
A fire like that we'll be able to see on the GoES.
Easily.
All right, I'm going to give you got anything on the monitors? I need to work for a second. I can give you the computer.
Yeah, let me see if I can pull something up. Going back to my watch shooting map. Let's take a look at this. Kind of
it's all you.
30-minute time lapse here.
I like the Red Mountain or.
Yeah, that thing had a good column go up.
Holy smokes!
Wow, that's impressive. Looks like a mushroom cloud.
All right, well, Dillon Creasy, my buddy Dillon's over there. Sorry, your namesake watershed's getting roasted right now.
George says, it doesn't feel like a real California fire season without a Klamath Ripper. You are so right. You are so right.
Well, we get kind of complacent about, like, I've been just watching all these fires not amount to anything, and then it's so fickle. I was looking at webcams earlier of the rain going across the Plumas. And I mean, we got absolutely soaked yesterday, and then we drove to Chester, 13 miles away, and it was still fairly dry. And so, one big storm like we had in Westwood yesterday can set back fire, it might set back fire season 3 weeks. It looks like the cloud cover is so hefty right now.
It's just hard to see.
On Dillon, we can't really see anything.
Yeah.
It's kind of red out in here.
Yeah.
Let's look at, I'll pull up radar scope.
Yeah, the Medford radar should definitely have it.
Well, it's hard to tell because, you know, like the whole world's convective right now.
Yeah, so it's going to be hard to tell kind of what's a fire and what's just a regular thunderstorm, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kathleen Mulligan's talking about a mountain wave is when incoming wind rises upslope incredibly fast, hits the top of the ridge, and rolls back on itself downslope. Highly recommend you watch California Weather Watch with Mike D.
Sounds good.
Mike D's in the house. What you gonna do? Go AWOL.
Yeah. I don't know that reference.
These youngsters, they don't
I don't know that
about
reference.
Beastie Boys.
I know Sabotage.
My kid, I got a 15-year-old now, is like into Eazy-E and
Okay.
cracking me up.
There you go. That's pretty
I was
good.
never myself into gangster rap at all, but my kid, like,
I mean, my dad's probably watching right now, and he was definitely in the indie Americana scene here in Chico back when he was going to Chico State in the early 90s, so he did not listen to that either.
is there any of them weather geeks out there that are having problems with radar scope? My radar scope is dogging.
Yeah. Oh yeah, Michael Snyder. Yeah, Michael Snyder. He's a good friend of mine. He's another storm chaser as well too. Yeah, he's got a really good intel on a lot of this stuff.
All right, I'm gonna pull up some webcams. Just we're kind of into weather mode here. I'll talk a little bit about the storms in northeastern California today. We'll look at that. We'll look at Indian Ridge, which is kind of Greenville. And play kind of these webcams are a pretty amazing resource for kind of just looking at where's the storm. So we're looking at Round Valley Reservoir, and you can see there's some heavy areas of rain, but it's pretty patchy. You know, there was a lot of lightning all over the Plumas today, but there was, you know, the lightning was more widespread than the soaking rain, I would say. So we are going to have lots of small fires. Now, one thing I just kind of started talking about, Dillon Fire is off T-Bar Road near one home. Well, my buddy lives on T-Bar, but it looks like it's on the other side of the river.
I have the webcam up right now from when it first started with the Plume. When that might be the most impressive Plume I've seen in a while.
Oh no, that's right at my buddy's house.
Really?
Yeah, that's messed up. Yeah, so we got some really good friends, Max Creasy and Dillon. They live right here in this meadow, and we burned a lot around their place with Trex events. But man, that's no good. That fire looks bad. I hope they're all right.
Yeah, here, if you want to pull up my screen, I got kind of when it really first started to blow up.
Okay, here we go. Holy smokes.
Yeah, that thing,
She's gone.
immediately off to the races.
Jesus.
Like that was...
Yeah, so if we look at where that is on the imagery here, you can see why. Wow. So Nifty's showing it on the other side of the road.
Really?
Yeah, which would be good for my buddy. Watch duties. I mean, it is off of T-Bar Road, but it is the other side of the river from T-Bar Road.
But the thing is, too, though, you know, especially with that sort of fire behavior, you have no clue where, when that column collapses, where those embers are going to spread as well, too, which is another thing to watch out for. But yeah, that thing really went off to the races very quickly.
Let's look real quick. We'll look on Facebook at the Orleans Salmon River complexities, because those guys will be talking about the specifics of where it is. If you are on Facebook a lot, the Orleans Salmon River complexities. It's weird. It knew I was talking about it for some reason.
They're always listening.
They are listening. It's a good place to go to get local intel, but I don't see anything in there about this fire yet.
Mm-hmm. It's probably just because, I mean, it just popped up. Just really just popped up. I mean, that Wild Frontier 2 Alert California cam time lapse that's impressive. Like that is a blow up for sure.
All right, I want to talk about something here with I kind of made some comments on Facebook about putting out every lightning fire, and the root of that comment was that we've got, see all these starts out here on the Lassen. So we're over to Susanville, Janesville, going up towards Bieber. There's a lot of new starts in Lassen County. And some of those are burning in areas, looks like not a lot of them right now are burning in areas where it's burned in a Dixie fire. And so one of my kind of personal crusades that gets me in trouble with people on Facebook. Turns out arguing about like land and fire management on Facebook's terrible, because every conversation we need to have about fire management, land management, is super specific in where it's happening, what the history is, everything else. But I've been talking a lot about how it doesn't make any sense to go put out lightning fires out here in the middle of the Dixie Fire, necessarily specific parts of the Dixie Fire, where everything's completely roasted. And maybe one tree's on fire, but we still will have like a wildland response. We'll have repellers or other people come and like put out a single tree that's burning like in the middle of this landscape that is like completely just roasted. You know, some of these areas, like there's no living trees for thousands of acres.
No.
Just a bunch of brush and everything else. And it's like, well, why bother? Why put out a fire here? Like, really? Like, why risk the lives of putting someone in a helicopter? Why drive out there? Like, when that fire crew, if they weren't going to put out a lightning fire out in BFE, like, they could go over here to a part of the forest that hasn't burned yet and thin it and get it ready to do prescribed fire, or do something proactive rather than just reacting to, you know, like, hey, there's a fire here on Dyer Mountain. When did that one start? But when you look at this landscape that's been burned by the Dixie Fire, there's some real opportunities just to let fires burn. And I know it's fraught, and we let that happen. We did that in Arizona, and it blew up, and it turned into fiasco, burned 150,000 acres, burned down the lodge. The difference is that area where that happened had contiguous fuel for 150,000 acres. And some of these areas out here, like there's tens of thousands of acres of contiguous high severity fire that fire's going to do nothing but make that landscape better. The longer we keep fire out of it, the more likely it's just going to like build up a bunch of dead and down material and fry again. And you know, that's what happened in the Moonlight Fire. So we're going to keep talking about that, because the Forest Service is going to keep sticking people out into kind of places that have no real risk, putting out fires that don't threaten anyone, just because it's a policy and because the public's scared of fire. And we know better. We've been doing this for 100 years. There's places where you let a fire burn and it gets away, it's bad. But we have all these great tools for understanding things like fire severity, like fuel loading. We got, you know, tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars invested in mapping fuels. So let's use that stuff. Let's not just like say, oh, well, it's interesting that we know that there's no fuel loading here, but we're still going to put out every fire as if this whole landscape has that potential. If you look at a place like the Dillon Fire where it is burning, it's like, well, yeah, you know, I'm probably not going to say like, let's go into this area that hasn't burned for the last 80 years or something, like on this side of T-Bar Road. Like, when I'm saying we should let lightning fires burn in places, I'm probably not talking about like letting a fire burn right below my buddy's house in an area that hasn't had any fire for like 60 years, right?
Or more. Yeah.
Yeah, but up here on the hill, it's like, hey, this area's burned 3 times in the last, you know, I was on this fire in 2014 and I was on this fire in 2008. It's like, I know that areas that have burned like 3 times in the last 30 years, like, they're in good shape. They're in bad shape compared to like when they had forest, but they're in a good shape as far as fire resilience goes. And so a landscape like the Klamath, where you have this patchwork of overlapping historic fires, creates opportunities, and we know where they are. We could say like, hey, this high mountain basin here that hasn't had fire, now it's got a fire that's backing, and it's not going to go anywhere because it's surrounded by, you know, XYZ fuel loading. Like, we know a lot of this stuff, so let's use that information. In the meantime, I hope that my buddy Dillon over here, you know, now that he has a fire named after him, I hope that the fire that's named after him doesn't like ruin the rest of his life, where every time someone says Dillon, he cringes because it's the name of the fire that took his house out. All right.
We can go back to my screen here. I got kind of the latest 15 minutes.
Okay, let's do it.
So it's still going pretty good.
Dang.
As you can see. Yeah.
Well, it's near one home. You know, they also have a nice Airbnb, so if it doesn't burn down, look up 10 Bear Cabin, because it's a pretty sweet spot.
Yeah. So 100 acres is what we're reporting here at Ouachita per Cal Fire. So
all right,
that's what we got for now.
Okay, you sweating yet?
A little bit. Not as bad as when I was, you know, at the Picket Fire, but we're getting there.
We're sweating because we care. I'm going to turn on a fan. You want to drive here, Steinberg?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll just make you the the leader here. I'm gonna sneak by you.
Wendy says loving the dry humor. If you don't know geographers, we have very dry sense of humor, so I'm gonna. I think it's probably a requirement as a geographer, specifically a pyrogeographer, to kind of have a dry sense of humor, especially when you're dealing with a lot of, for me at least, kind of deadly situations, especially when you're at wildfires. I know it's a lot of things too, but again, thank you for letting us know. Wow, like that thing is really exploding. Like that's pretty impressive to see. Oh gosh. I'll let you sneak back in here.
It's really going off.
There's a lot of jokes I can make, but I won't. Yeah, it's pretty impressive for especially initial attack. You know, having that kind of big blow up out of a drainage. Yeah, that's a good idea to let them know. The one thing too that we also got to think about, especially with those lightning fires kind of going up in like northeast California, is that with this monsoon activity, we're seeing a lot of humidity increase kind of as the days progress. So each day, the atmosphere is just getting more kind of moist, especially, you know, with the outflows from these storms. So that's definitely something to keep in mind, especially when we're thinking about fire behavior, especially during the night too. Like, so I have kind of Eastern Lassen and Modoc counties, kind of their fire weather forecast, and as you can see tonight,
Can you blow up the screen a little?
yeah, let me zoom in here. The valley's maximum humidity that they're going to get is 69 to 79%. Like that is pretty high. Same thing mid-slope too, especially with, you know, where this fire started. So look out. Plume is at 26,000 feet per radar omega. Yeah, I believe it. I mean, the way that thing is rocking and rolling like that that's pretty good. And especially with these sorts of fires, these plume-dominated fires, there's a lot of erratic fire behavior that can occur with this sort of thing. You know, when that plume collapses, outflow winds can come out from where that is, which could spread the fire and spot it a half mile, 3/4 of a mile away. You can also have, you know, embers that are being thrown everywhere. It can create its own weather. I know there's been certain fires, I think Dixie too, where there's actually lightning that's come out from these plumes.
It looks like it's on the other side of the river, judging from the radar.
Yeah, from where that plume is.
Yeah. So call watch duty and tell them they're fired.
Looks like, yep, so Siskiyou Zone 1506 is under an evacuation order now too.
And there's like 10 people living there.
Yeah.
All right.
Pretty remote area, California, up there. That's for sure. Just time lapse again. Yeah. And a lot of the time too, especially with my experience kind of going up to the Klamath and especially with my first Klamath fire back in 2022 at the McKinney fire, first day it'll go big. But then eventually it seems like things can kind of settle down. It'll get stalked in with smoke a couple days with the inversion. However, with this fire, especially with how moist the atmosphere is, there's going to be a lot of kind of, it'll allow the fire to kind of breathe. And so that's why this is happening.
When are you thinking we're supposed to get high pressure again?
Probably towards the end of the week, I would say, is my guess. If you want to take back over the screen, I can kind of take a look at the forecast.
All right.
On the pivotal weather.
All right. All right. Back to the Dillon fire. Yep. It's burning in this yellow area, surrounded by blue and green, and that means it's going to go crazy. Don't ask me why. It's just the way the colors work. Okay, so I'm going to jump up real quick while he's looking at stuff. We're going to talk about the flat fire a little bit, and we're going to play some music for our friends in Oregon. I've never gotten so many complaints about music as I did on my video about the flat fire. I don't know if people in Sisters, Oregon hate music or if they just hate funk. And I listened and I know the mix wasn't great, but geez, man, they're like, fire's serious. there's no place for music or joy in reporting about it. And I understand that folks are traumatized, but when I'm traumatized, I want to listen to some music, man. I don't want to listen to me talk the whole time. Okay, so here's the flat fire, and I don't have a new perimeter for that, I don't think. This fire hasn't really, what happens is we rely heavily on these planes that fly out of Boise to give us infrared mapping, and they can't really map through heavy clouds. And so the night that we did this broadcast, the middle of the day, fire was dying down on this satellite image taken at noon. One thing that's difficult with the infrared too is that, like in grass, the fire goes out, and especially if it gets moist, it can be really hard to map a fire with infrared imagery in the middle of the night if it's out in grass, because it just no longer has any heat at all. You might be able to map kind of stumps and other stuff dot to dot. You can see even on this imagery at noon, these kind of orange spots. This is flat fire near Sisters. These are like burning stumps, burning down logs. But the grass, there's not even any heat, like 12 hours after it burns. There's not heat in the grass, 12 minutes after it burns. So as far as we can tell, looking at the webcams or anything else, flat fire is about, it's pretty much done. We talked a bit on here just about how flashy fuels in the desert drive really fast fire behavior, very intense, but then it's done incredibly quickly.
Yeah. Just kind of still looking at the Dillon fire here with that plume still going up.
All right, yeah, and then this is NIPSI mapping of the flat 21,970 versus what we had on the infrared. Really seeing pretty much no growth from the infrared to what NIPSI has now. They might just be using the same perimeter, but I think flat's done. All right, you got anything for us?
Yeah, I grew up in northern Oregon, so kind of wildfires in that kind of high desert biome. They run hard, they run fast, especially with wind, but when the wind stops, they're able to really get a stop on us. And I think the flat fire is pretty kind of a good example of that happening. So
yeah, and so just because you hear that it's 0% containment, it doesn't mean the fire's not basically out. It just means that they haven't had time to really check it and mop it up. But we'd say, don't let the official containment numbers, don't let those things keep you up at night if you can find other sources of information. It's difficult. We're in a tough spot trying to talk about this stuff because we've got this official government number, containment's at 10%, and then if we come on and say like, hey, you really don't need to worry about this, we're kind of contradicting. They're still worried about it. They're worried about, they're not ready to say it's done because there's higher consequence for them than it is for us to be like, oh, it's done. We're not the ones that are going to take the heat if it rekindles. But hopefully what we're trying to teach people is like how you can find webcams, you can find other sources, you can talk to your friends, you can build kind of your own information networks, kind of information mutual aid, as it were, to we got to kind of help inform each other, especially Oregon. There's the public information kind of fire machine is not as well funded or oiled in Oregon as it is in California. Here we have our infrared plane flies 3 times a day, and we have our 5,000 webcams or whatever it is. There's a lot more money being spent to allow us to kind of rapidly assess stuff. Oregon's getting there, but
yeah, 2020 with the Labor Day fires in September, that was a really big wake-up call for me and for a lot of others, where the information was just not getting out to us quick enough. And so back then I was a senior in high school at the time in Portland, and kind of seeing what was happening in California and how advanced they were compared to Oregon. It was why those fires, it was just so kind of terrifying, for one, because nothing like that had happened in recent memory since the Tillamook burns in the 1930s compared to now. And so now we're finally getting more wildfire cameras. We're now starting to get more intel, but I know especially with the watch duty side of things too, like we've run into some kind of unfortunate kind of miscommunications, because they really, I know for ODF, I think they only have one public information officer for all of their forest land. So if you have 10, 15 new fires that are all of a sudden, some of them are getting real big, you might not get that information because that public information officer just doesn't have the time, or they don't have the resources compared to, a CAL FIRE unit where one unit like BTU or SHU or TGU, they have their own PIOs,
Yeah, public information.
Yep.
officer.
Yeah,
Okay,
public
so
information.
we're going to talk now about the Immigrant Fire. This is in the Oregon Cascades, and just to kind of give you the kind of big picture, you've got Bend up here, you've got Eugene over here, and Cottage Grove, and you've got the highway that goes from Chemalt over Willamette Pass through Oak Ridge. And so the Immigrant Fire was really cooking last night, and this fire is burning in an area that burned in 2009. So I'm going to turn on that kind of fire history layer. This was the Tumblebug complex. So we talk a lot about how previous fires affect current fires. Either, so you can see that you zoom in here and you see okay, this landscape. It burned hot and then it got salvage logged. And so you've got a lot of kind of fine fuels on this landscape. You got a lot of grass and kind of ferns and brush and small trees. And that, you're going to have a fire, oftentimes it's going to burn a lot faster in a landscape like this because the wind can actually get down on the ground and blow right on the fire, versus in like heavy old growth forest, you can have like a 50-mile-an-hour wind in the tops of the trees and you can like light a cigarette with like a paper match down on the forest floor because you're blocked from that wind surfacing. So fires, we say they affect future fire behavior. There's these time windows. Maybe the first 5 years, fire behavior is less, or maybe fire behavior is less severe in low severity areas where you still have canopy. But all these things about this previous disturbance drive different aspects of the fuel structure, the relative amount of drying, solar exposure, fine fuels versus medium-sized fuels versus big old logs, everything else. So these previous fire scars, often they say high severity fire begets more high severity fire, just because high severity fire comes back in grass and brush and that stuff grows like crazy because it's got a ton of sun, and then the next fire comes and it can burn hot again.
Yeah, so if you want to kind of share my screen too, I'll pull up the kind of the 6-hour time lapse starting around kind of 2:30 of the Immigrant Fire, so you can kind of see here.
Go for it,
Come on, load. Come on. Oh, doesn't want to go. But it was going pretty good. There was a pretty good plume on it, and again, it was because of that moisture. So this is a current kind of look right now of kind of what's happening, and you can see now that the kind of sun is going down, you're getting less, rise to that plume. It's less, there's not as much heat that's affecting the fire, so therefore it's kind of laying down, and that's typical for usually what the sort of fire that we're seeing right now would happen. Come on, let's hope, hopefully this will load up. There we go, slowly.
Fan too loud.
Is the fan too loud? Yeah, no, I need to look it up, but
Okay, well, here, while you turn off the fan and I'll...
yeah.
I'll
If I pass out, I'm sorry.
Right, yeah, we're just gonna get nice and greasy here in the lookout. Just means we have to buy another microphone, so we need some more lookout donations so we can buy Steinberg a good microphone. Right, so here's Diamond Peak, and these are all either large fires that have happened, not crazy distant memory. The Rattle Fire, the Rough Patch Fire. So there's quite a bit. Just we'll zoom out here, and there's a lot of new starts in Oregon. Like we said, a lot of the potential for these is going to be based on the weather. But here's the difficult thing about these fires that are established right now. In the big picture, is that a lot of these fires aren't going to necessarily blow up tomorrow or the next day, as long as we're in this kind of like major marine influence. Looking at our kind of big picture, moisture moving up, monsoon influence, etc. That's fine for the next couple days, but what we see we're coming up on Labor Day, right? And the Labor Day fires in Oregon were pretty horrific. That you've got like Beachy Creek Fire. Like there was these major fires in Oregon that burned like 1 million acres in like 2 days. Archie Creek Fire, the Holiday Farm Fire up here that burned right into my uncle's place. So, what was that, September 7th?
Yeah, that was September 7th, 2020.
Yeah, so that's the worry about all these fires that become established right now, is that they might be fine for the next week, but now that we're into the offshore wind season, those east winds bring extreme drying, and they arrive. The reason that they're so majorly dry is, if we look at Oregon, we'll turn off all these fires because we don't want to scare you all. Like this is the interior of the continent. This is the Great Basin, and up here we got the interior Columbia River. So you got the Rocky Mountains out here, but basically you've got like tens of millions of acres of desert. And so when you get east winds coming over that, for, you know, say you have, you know, a big high pressure system over the Rocky Mountains, all that wind blowing across that desert is just drying as it goes. Any vegetation that's out there in the desert is sucking the moisture out of that. So when it does get to Oregon, then it can really wreak havoc, especially if there's fires already established. So that's the real watch out for getting a bunch of new fires in Oregon right now, is that their timber fires are going to become well established. There's not a lot we can do to make a timber fire go away in a hurry. No amount of large helicopters or air tankers, even hand crews, can turn like a 20,000 acre timber fire into not being a hazard.
Yeah.
So,
and especially too with Oregon, you know, we just don't have the resources like CAL FIRE does, and that's just because of the funding. You know, California has so much more taxpayer money that goes into the CAL FIRE Hawks. They have, you know, CAL FIRE has a huge, you know, fleet. They have so many engines, so many hand crews. Oregon just doesn't have that resource, you know, and that's why a lot of these fires, especially, you know, these lightning fires, they just can't, you know, they just don't have the resources. So you could have, you know, a 15,000 acre fire, and you might only have about 100 people on it. I know the Holiday Farm Fire, one of the Labor Day fires in 2020, they only had about 120 resources assigned to that fire on the second day, you know, when it was after it really blew up. And because that's just, and that was why the 2020 fires were just so catastrophic.
yeah.
So I have the Immigrant Fire. I finally got the proper webcam, so we can look at the time lapse kind of today.
Okay.
Some of the plume activity from it.
Here you go.
So this is 6 hours. So you can see that it was cooking pretty good. It was moving pretty good. Yeah, it was right around here is when it really started to kind of rip up. And again, you can see that it's just because there's a lot of moisture. So another one of your watch outs is their cumulus buildup around the fire, which tells you that there is enough moisture aloft to have those clouds build up. And so that's why the plume here is really kind of capping out, which is, you know, what Zeke talked about before, those ice caps, basically just like, it's like basically ripping like a cauliflower stem at a grocery store. That's what it looks like. And so that's what you're seeing right here too. And so that's why it was pretty impressive kind of throughout the day, just kind of watching this plume kind of really get going. And like right here too, like look at that, that's just like a mushroom cloud.
Got a comment over here from Zion Lion number 1, saying that a stronger response is needed when it first starts. And the problem is just that when we look at the number of fires we've got here, that just ends up not being possible. You know, like if you've got hundreds of new starts, you end up prioritizing the ones that have potential, the most potential. But there's kind of no amount of spending you could make to build a fire response infrastructure that would handle these days when you have thousands of new starts. And so when you look at the large fire history here, a lot of what you see is stuff that happened in a year like 2008, where we had, you know, thousands of new starts. So like all these big kind of mustard areas here, a lot of these are like, you know, just big fires that could have been put out if they were the only game in town. We're really good at putting out the single ignition. Even like you get a dozen ignitions early in the season and you can put a hotshot crew on each one, then you're going to put them out. But when you have like an engine for a fire that's burning out not near a road, there's nothing you can really do. So there's kind of this point at which we have to acknowledge that full suppression isn't possible. We've tried really hard. We've spent hundreds of billions of dollars over the last century on that goal, and it's not, and we're still trying to solve that problem with new technology that people are inventing, the robotic helicopter fleets and all this kind of pie in the sky tech investment, but they're trying to solve the wrong problem. And so, like, I think when it comes to talking about fire in Oregon, we might as well just like kick the hornet's nest right off the bat and say that, like, there's this enormous amount of outcry because the state issued a map that showed that, like, most of the people who live in Oregon live in a high fire hazard zone, and people said, no, we don't, like, I'm not gonna be able to get insurance. And of course there were problems with the way it was mapped, because how are you gonna, like, map fire hazard for every parcel in the state without making big generalizations? So I'm not defending the process that the people used who created it, but I know the tools they used, and they're the tools that we have: satellite imagery, fire history, LiDAR. Like, it's the way we do, it's the tools we have, and they use them not poorly, not, they made a lot of mistakes, but it doesn't change the fact that most of the people who live in Oregon have extreme levels of fire danger threatening where they live, and killing the dude that made the map isn't going to change that fact. But there's been this huge political shitstorm that's come out of this effort, and it's predictable, but it doesn't change the fact that it's true. And the reason it's true is because we have fires that start all across the landscape. We can't put them all out. We have a history of large fires wreaking havoc when you have big high winds, and it overwhelms suppression. So there's no technical solution to that. The technical solution is to re-side your house. The technical solution is to, like, move your firewood pile off of your deck in the summer. Technical solution is to fix the screens on your vents so embers can't get in. The technical solution is to weed eat. Technical solution is to burn as much as you can around your property. There's lots of ways you can reduce your hazard, but acknowledging that the hazard exists is kind of the first step. And the fact that you don't like the map doesn't mean necessarily that the people who made it are full of shit.
Yeah, because it only takes one big, couple of drought years followed by a big continental east wind event up there to have fires in areas that people didn't even think that fire could happen, like, say, east of Portland in Sandy, or in my neck of the woods in the west side of the Portland metro area. You can look at the 1930s, the huge Tillamook burns that happened in the northern Coast Range in the Tillamook National Forest. It's just, it only takes a perfect storm for things to really open people's eyes. And I think 2020 was definitely, I thought, was going to be the first one, but unfortunately, with especially after these, those maps, those fire severity maps that came out, in the real vicious pushback that occurred, it's pretty disappointing. And as you said, too, like, these maps, they do have their faults. They are a little too one or two dimensional. They don't take into account for a homeowner that maybe is doing the right thing, doing, prescribed burning, doing their own thinning and mastication. It's happening here in Northern California. Like, people are doing the right thing, but they're still considered a high fire severity zone, when we know that if a fire will hit this masticated, prescribed burn area, the fire behavior will change. And we saw that, a really good example is obviously Maple Creek Ranch here in Cohasset during the Park Fire. They did a bunch of PBA burns, Prescribed Burn Association, projects, a bunch of different, mastications, thinnings, stuff like that. When the Park Fire hit that area, fire behavior instantly changed, and they were actually able, the firefighters, CAL FIRE, they were able to, establish an anchor point there, which is, a safe place to defend, homes and fight the fire. And because of that one property owner doing the right thing, they were able to save pretty much a majority of Cohasset, which was really impressive, because I was there documenting the fire, and I genuinely thought Cohasset would be gone. But because of Maple Creek Ranch and the mitigation work that was done, it saved like 500, 600 homes. Like, it's truly impressive, and that's just one person doing the right thing. So, if we think about other big wildland urban interface communities in the Sierra, like say Grass Valley, what could a whole neighborhood or community do in terms of mitigation work before a fire were to occur? You know, it's stuff like that where resiliency comes from, and it all starts with people like you guys, you know, watching this live stream. The Butte Prescribed Burn Association, a lot of the members there, they don't have any wildland fire experience. You know, they don't, you know, they're like me or Zeke or, you know, whoever, like haven't been actually a firefighter, but they're learning, and they're learning the techniques, and they're learning how to do all this mitigation work.
I'm trying to pull up some imagery I have that I had a guy at UNR build me animations of the 2020 storms from GOA's loops, but having a hard time finding the old file. That's the problem with, you know, just always jamming on this stuff. Keeping finding the old stuff, but I'll look a little more. You want to drive here?
Yeah, let's take a look at kind of the latest imagery or California stuff. Sorry, I'm getting distracted. There's a bunch of mosquitoes that have come in, and I'm just getting eaten alive right now.
And sweating.
Mosquitoes just absolutely love me, which sucks.
All right, but I keep looking for my.
Yeah, that thing is still really cooking, the Dillon fire. Wow, that thing is impressive. Come on. There we go.
I'm getting, now that you're mentioning, I'm getting eaten by mosquitoes too.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so there's a new fire by Paskenta.
Let's take a look here.
And so Steinberg, tell us what you do for watch duty.
So I'm a volunteer reporter for them. So I started back in 2022 when we launched statewide, which is crazy to think it's been 3 years now. And right now I haven't been able to report as much because I've just been so busy with school and, you know, finding future career stuff, you know, going out to fires. But yeah, I've been with the team, so it's really been cool to see kind of how much watch duty has evolved and all the different new products. It's really been pretty cool to see. Paskenta Fire, let's see, 20 minutes ago, vegetation fire, flames visible, yeah. Looks like they haven't really gotten much intel yet from that. Rancho Tehama and Paskenta, that area, that's also big grass fire ripper area. I've documented too many fires out in that area when it's been 110 out, and it's horrible.
Yeah, so it looks like the Dillon fire is not burning on the T-bar side. It's burning on the opposite side of the river from T-bar. It is burning on up at Dillon Mountain Road in the Rock Creek drainage. Mm-hmm. I'm still looking for that lost file from Oregon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you guys can't see it, but I get to see the inner workings of how Zeke does it, and there's a lot of files, so whenever he's taking a little bit of time, you just got to bear with him, all right?
Here's an image of
I think I'm going to end the stream with having about 30 mosquito bites on each leg. It's pretty rough right now.
Yeah, the lookout is it's not a luxury apartment. Let's see here. This is just showing, this is the morning after the big fires in Oregon took off, and we talk about that east wind coming off the desert, and you can really see the red here is the fire heat, and you see all the smoke going way out to sea. But there were fires that started way up in Washington and all the way down through Oregon, and then later the next day the Bear Fire ran 30 miles in California, and the Slater Fire ran about the same amount in southern, in Humboldt County, real close to where this Dillon Fire is burning right now. So that's what's on our radar right now this time of year. It's just like, when is that offshore going to happen? It's kind of a major pattern change. It usually happens in the last week of August, first week of September, and then the game changes. But our most destructive fires, hey, you got Golden Heights. We're getting heckled here. Yeah. East winds, most destructive fires in California, Oregon, everywhere else happen in the fall. We have terrible forest management knowledge and shouldn't get baseless fire advice without that critical piece. You should move out of our country because of an insurance map. Oh, piss up a rope, Golden Heights. What Golden Heights, like, tell us about your name. Where's that coming from? I'm not going to justify my forest management experience. to some anonymous person on YouTube and start your own channel. We need Aaron to look out. Okay. Mosquitoes are bad. Oh, man. There's a lot of people chatting over here. I think my wife is moderating or something because the abusive comment got just disappeared magically. I'm sweating, man.
Yeah.
I think we got to figure out the microphone situation so we can have both. See, with the door open, that's why we're getting eaten.
Yeah,
Right.
the big thing with we haven't had a big continental offshore wind event in a while too.
Yeah.
That's one thing that I've really been talking with some of my friends with. Is like, I mean, really in recent memory, like in Northern California at least, when was the last time we had a pretty big one?
Yeah, and so the advice we have regarding that kind of stuff is plan on it happening, right? Plan on fires coming. Get your place ready as if a fire is coming. We all want to cut our brush and everything like when the fire's on the way, but that's not the time to do it. That's the time to be getting out of Dodge. So check out the rest of our channel. We've got the Danger in Plain Sight series on our YouTube, which is our new movie series. Basically, we've got a trailer on here, but episode 5 is coming out on Friday. It's a 5-part series traveling around LA with fire experts on bikes. Features a lot of Steinberg's really incredible inside the fire footage. It also features still photos he shot of homes burning down, and it really helps. It's intended to help people understand how homes burn down and how fires happen. And so we're proud of it, and we think it's solid forest management advice. Forest management advice in Southern California is talk about something else other than forest management, because it's not a lot of forest down there.
No.
We need 100% DEET. All right, so lastly, check out the website. We're going to do some giveaways. I was just up in Westwood, and we've got a supporter up there who gave me a whole bunch of nice tools, pruning saws, little hand pruners, good stuff for taking care of your property. So we're going to do some giveaways where if you jump on the lookout and become a subscriber, you'll get entered in a raffle. We're also going to have some mystery wrench packs. We're going to have a bunch of nice swag. So stay tuned. There's lots of ways you can support the Lookout. Find our archive if you like hearing all the stuff. Steinberg and I are going to keep collaborating. He's running around with his camera, and I'm not going to do that because I've done enough of that. Yeah, but I'm glad he wants to, because there's no substitute for getting a look inside the Dragon.
Okay.
The Picket Fire is pretty much done, Zion Line. So yeah, send us your questions. If you look on the Lookout, there is a link here to email me, and we'll keep doing these. We're not going to do them every night because this is my microphone. I don't want to share it every night, but it's nice having you here, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I mean, again, like 6 minutes away. Let me know whenever you need help, because I know there's a lot of screens to look at for Zeke. So I think he needs probably all the help he can get when it comes to that, especially with the comments too.
Another microphone. So we're going to take. We got some donations here. We're going to take those, and we're going to buy another microphone like mine, because mine's better than his. It's directional. Doesn't pick up the AC as much. I'm a total glory hog. Oh yeah, and check out the we got the Squatch Duty stickers. Well, just the Squatch, but we got the Squatch Duty T-shirts, and yeah, I'm lost here now.
The heat's starting to get to Zeke, I think.
Yeah, Squatch Duty. Everyone who lives in the woods, it's their responsibility to put some fire on the ground, and that includes Bigfoot. So that's the Squatch Duty joke. Yeah, we need some bats in here for sure. All right, we're out. We're gonna play the little music that makes everyone upset, and we're gonna boogie. Oh, there's no music.